She's just going to tell people to get water.
My hearing's already damaged.
Okay.
Not gonna do much.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to get started here. Adam, how's the sound in the back?
That's pretty good, Sarah. I think once everyone quiets down back here, it'll be just fine.
Okay, thank you. I want to make sure everyone can get the information. So it is kind of a warm night. I just want to let everyone know that the CERT team did provide water in a cooler kind of at the back of the pavilion here. Maybe, so after the meeting, if you need that, a little bit of hydration. Thank you, CERT team, for bringing those. Or if you're super hot and you need some water, you can always raise your hand and we can provide that to you. Okay. So I think we're getting pretty close. How are we with the... Okay. So welcome everyone. My name's Sarah Sarlos. I'm a fire information officer for the Alaska team. Tonight's meeting is an opportunity for us to share what's happening on the two fires, the Shovel Creek fire and then also the Nugget Creek fire. So we're going to be covering two fires. Everyone has the handout here, or most people do. If not, let's share with your neighbors. And I'm just going to quickly go over the agenda. So again, I'm Sarah Sarlos, and then we're going to be talking about the weather, what's a little bit of the weather that's to come, and then how that weather is going to be affecting the fires in the area. And then we'll have a solid operational update from our operations chief, Jake Livingston. And then our incident commander, Norm McDonald, who is the IC or incident commander over these two fires. And he is right there. That's Norm McDonald. And then to wrap it up, we're going to have the Fairbanks North Star Borough, David Gibbs. He's the director of emergency operations. He's going to speak on the planning that has been done for these sort of events, and then the process of notifications for the Ready, Set, Go campaign that some of you might have heard of, and then he will be able to go deeper into that. We also have some handouts, and then I believe David brought some handouts too for at the end. So that'll have more information about the Ready, Set, Go. And then, so closing, so we're going to keep our questions till the end. And then when we go into Q&A, this is my ask. If you have a question that you know is going to be good for the group, that you have the question about, and you're like, wow, this is really going to help my neighbor, or I can take this information and put it on my Facebook group, let's ask those questions. If you have a particular question that's more about your property and you want just some more specific information, we're going to hang out here until every question is answered, and we'll be broken up in small groups with the fire folks on this side and then the emergency borough folks over here. So then we'll be able to go on more that one-on-one specific questions. So does that make sense to everyone? I get some nods? Okay. Again, I want to check the sound one more time in the back. Are we good? Okay. Thanks. And with that, we're going to get a weather briefing and some fire behavior from Bill Aney.
Hi, I'm Bill Aney. I'm a fire behavior analyst that's working with the Alaska Green team. Thank you for having me up here. I'm enjoying this and learning an awful lot about what you guys have got up here in this beautiful country. Let me talk to you a little bit about the weather that we're seeing right now. We're in the midst of a warming and drying trend. The temperatures and relative humidities in the afternoons and evenings have been enough so that it's challenging the firefighters with pretty active fire behavior. A good rule of thumb is anything less than about 35% relative humidity and greater than 75 degrees Fahrenheit is going to be creating some pretty active fire behavior, and we've been seeing that the last 2 or 3 days, especially in the afternoons, and then today it started even earlier in the day. The third element of that is winds, and fortunately the last couple days the winds have not been very strong. So the spot fires that have been generated by these spruce trees as the fire gets up into the crowns and torches have been relatively short to mid distance away from those trees and not the half-mile type spotting that you can see with heavier winds. That's a good thing. We want to keep it that way. So any influence you've got to keep the winds down, please do that. The warm and dry trend that we're seeing is projected to continue for the next few days, with the possibility of a brief cooler and wetter spell Sunday and Monday. Scattered showers, frequent showers is what this language that I've been hearing from the Weather Service today, but followed by a rebuilding of another ridge and warmer and drier weather after that. In terms of fire behavior, what's happening is that the fires are carrying in the dense black spruce stands, the smaller black spruce stands, burning through the feather moss, getting up into the crowns, and then running through that with short range runs and spotting ahead of itself. It's early enough in the season that a lot of the other fuels, the grasses, the shrubs, the white spruce, the deciduous trees are still actively growing, lots of moisture in them, and those are not carrying fire. But that black spruce is the fuel component that's really carrying it. That's going to change over the next few weeks, as you well know, as those grasses and other fuels start to cure and dry out, and the peat becomes a little bit more available. The last thing I want to talk about is just letting you know that in the heat of the afternoon, the fire behavior that we're seeing is really too great for direct attack by crews without any backup of water. They're not just going to run out there with a shovel and take on a spruce tree that's torching out with sending up flames 15, 20, 25 feet in the air. So that water support that you see, with the airplanes and retardant planes and helicopters going over, and of course the long hose lays that they put in to help back them up as they're putting in the fire line is critical. That's something they've got to have in order to be able to fight fire in these conditions. They're not just going to bail off into the woods without water behind them in the heat of the day.
Good afternoon, Jake Livingston, Operations Section Chief with the Alaska team. I'll start off by talking about these maps here. The lower map is indicating all the fires that are burning in the state right now. We're seeing quite a bit of activity to the northeast of us out in the Yukon Flats. So whenever we get the northeast winds, it could bring a lot of smoke in and impact here and what we're doing out on the fire. The Shovel Creek fire, just west and north of here, about 12 miles, is right here, just off the backside of Murphy Dome. And then we have the Nugget Creek fire out on 30 Mile Chena Hot Springs Road. And just a little scale from the top of Murphy Dome Road to fire 323 Nugget Creek, it's 58 air miles. Okay, Nugget Creek fire, Chena Hot Springs Road, 34 mile right here. It's south of the Chena Hot Springs Road, south of the Chena River, up in this mountainous terrain. If you look around to the east and south and west of the fire, you have old burn scars. So really this fire is boxed in by previous burns in 2013 and 2004. And what our mission with that one is to monitor it, map the fire growth. We fly it several times a day. We have some overhead personnel on the ground out there watching. Tomorrow, we're going to have a rappel crew rappel into some sites along the Nugget Creek area, and they'll set up sprinklers and pumps on the cabin there. And if the fire continues to grow toward the river, we'll set up protection measures along the values along the roadway there. The majority of our activity right now is on the Shovel Creek incident just behind Murphy Dome. We have 6 hotshot crews, 2 Type 2 crews, and quite a few engines, water tenders, dozers, that sort of thing up on the fire. Just on the direct fire edge right now, there's at least 170 people. So that's the crews and then fire line supervisors. What they're doing is trying to keep the fire as small as possible. They're working down this ridge, which runs all the way down to the Chattanooga River, trying to keep it up on this ridge and come around and tie into Shovel Creek. Just to give you a sense of how much fire perimeter we have out there, they have at least 15 miles of hose being supported by pumps coming off the top of Murphy Dome. And what's filling the tanks that the pumps are pumping out of are a whole series of water tenders, like 5,000 gallon water tender trucks, just shuttling from the bottom of Murphy Dome Road from the fire station there. And also in support of the firefighters, we're using retardant air tankers, water scooping aircraft, and several helicopters. A couple of them are Type 1 helicopters, which drop up to 900 gallons of water at a time. Some of the other difficulties out there would be steep terrain. I already mentioned the distance of the fire perimeter, and just the hot and dry weather. And then when the spruce trees torch, they throw embers, a ways away from the edge. So they're having to be real proactive with watching where the smoke direction is going, so they can grid underneath there and look for spot fires. So that's what's going on directly on the fire. Again, we're trying to keep it as small as possible. We also have personnel along the Chattanooga River, a bunch of recreational cabins down there, a few permanent residents. The fire is about 1.25 miles from the closest structure off the Chattanooga River. Those structures have sprinklers on them set with pumps set up in the river. We have a crew down there with some overhead supported by airboat, and they're assessing the structures and values at risk east up the Chattanooga River and then west down the Chattanooga River. Up on the top of Murphy Dome, we have the Murphy Structure Protection Group, and they're going out into those areas, assessing the values at risk, talking to people, coming up with equipment and supply orders, coming up with how many resources they may need if it ever got to that point. And that includes Martin Subdivision, Lincoln Subdivision, Murphy Subdivision, Perfect Perch, and McLeod Subdivision. One thing that we have out here that was pre-existing is the fuel break along the top of the old Murphy Dome Road area, that main east-west running ridge line. It's about 300 to 500 feet wide, put in by state forestry. So that's a great feature that we can work off of if it ever came to that. Over here on the west side of the fire, we have this the Hard Luck burn from 2009. That's also a thing that's helping us contain the fire. As far as what's left to do on the main fire, they just have to try and tie it off to the Shovel Creek. That's the plan anyway, given conditions and fire behavior, and then just go direct and get all the way around it. There is a little bit of activity picking up on the west side of Shovel Creek, but it really has nowhere to go right now because it's going to run into that old burn. And I can answer questions later. Thank you.
Thanks, Jake. Good job with that description. So my name's Norm McDonald. I'm the incident commander for the Alaska, called the Green Team. I'm one of two teams in Alaska. Our other team's down in Kenai right now in the Swan Lake fire. That's our big fire to the south. And our second team, the Green Team, we are been assigned to these two incidents that Jake just described. I want to just go back just a little bit. The fire season, how we got here. The week this fire started, the state took a big hit of lightning for several days. This is the outcome of one of those strikes. The local area is the Fairbanks Area Forestry. It's their responsibility for initial attack. So that started with aggressive air attack. They had scoopers, or the fire bosses, the scooping aircraft, helicopters, tankers, and a load of smoke jumper on this fire. So quickly after it started, it grew to about 300 acres first shift. I think I was tracking the fire on my screen back in my office, and in about 2 hours they'd called for our team. So they knew right away it was something they were going to catch with the resources they had. We were ordered and mobilized and took command of this fire on Monday morning. Some of the other things that the state and AFS, the BLM or counterparts, have done, we've got over 1,000 firefighters from the lower 48 in Alaska to help support our efforts. We have aircraft from Canada, 2 provinces in Canada, Washington. We have helicopters coming up from Idaho. I'm looking at Ray Crow back there, who's a big part of making that happen. He's one of the dispatchers in the Alaska Interagency Coordination Center. So we have resources coming from all over the country. Today we have 25 crews, and I think 5 more come tomorrow. Is that right, Ray? So we've got a lot of stuff here, more coming. So the good news is we've got 2 large fires now to support, and we're doing that with the resources we have. We're getting what we need. The crews are getting supported with supplies. Jake mentioned 15 miles of hose. That's a lot of hose out there. We're able to support that in state. The challenge we'll have is if we get other large fires. So with that, we brought in additional 30 smoke jumpers, retardant ships for initial attack. So we've got this fire going on we're supporting, and the state and the federal side of it are also working aggressively on suppressing any new starts. So for us, that's an important part of what we do. The 2 fires are priorities, but the number 1 is suppressing any new starts. So that's how we prioritize our fires in Alaska, keep them small for cost, for keeping resources available, protecting homes, light. That's how we look at it. So Jake did a really good job of describing the operations on there, and that's a lot goes on in the field, and to support that, that's what our team is here for. We have staff for public information, Sarah. We have liaison officers that work with the borough, troopers, state parks, to help coordinate those efforts, making sure we have a good communication with the group. We have a logistics staff. We've got over 300 firefighters on the ground now and more coming. So to feed, to support them with the hose, the water. We have a planning section to provide us maps, the fire behavior, fire weather, and then a finance section that helps keep costs of all this, because it'll be paid for at some point. So that's what we bring with us. It's a staff of about 50 support people, and our mission is to provide you with information, provide our cooperators with good information, and then support the firefighters on the ground with whatever they need to do the job that they have to do. And so far we've had good success. Jake mentioned some of the challenges we've had. I do want to point out some of the work that goes into this before a fire even starts, and that's the planning that the borough's done with the evacuation process. And on the Division of Forestry side is that fuel break. Those give us that comfort zone. We know we're going to get fires in this country. We know they move fast. We know their structures. So the planning that went in there and the work that was put in there by the local area office, it was paramount for us. They've got several of them around the area, and this is just a really good example of why we do that work. Some of you were probably at the cooperative meetings or public meetings when they did that, and this to me just shows the importance of that type of work and planning that goes into it before the fire starts. I think we'll turn it over to the emergency services and talk a little bit about our evacuation levels. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. My name is David Getz. I'm the Emergency Operations Director for the borough. Mayor Ward is very concerned about this and wanted to be sure that you understand that. He unfortunately had a prior commitment that he just couldn't get away from. He will be visiting the area Friday with me and getting a tour with the team, and also going up to the fire in the communities up there to speak with people as well. He also wanted to make sure I thank the team for their hard work and the firefighters that are employed by the team to do the fire suppression. I also have staff here that will be available later to answer questions. When we have these types of events, really the 3 things in support of the team and the incident that we do are public information support. We do the alert and warning piece, and if it comes to it, the evacuation planning piece. The evacuation planning, I guess, is what we'll talk about. It begins with a really close coordination and planning with the team. This team has been extremely accommodating for us, and I think we're working very well together. We also have a number of agency cooperators, as well as a number of volunteer groups, and they've all been engaged to support this effort. We had what we call a cooperators group, evacuation cooperators group meeting yesterday, where we all got together in the Emergency Operations Center to meet and talk about kind of the steps that we're going to employ. We are employing a kind of a national program for evacuations called Ready, Set, and Go. The ready stage is basically you do a lot of your pre-evacuation sort of personal preparedness. We can explain these things in detail, and actually the staff has put together a really nice handout which we'll have available for you at the sort of the back of the meeting for later. The ready stage is just the pre-evacuation preparedness. The set stage is get ready to go at very short notice. There's lots of things you can do. They're detailed on the materials that we're passing out. And then the go stage is go immediately. That means get out of the way, kind of get to a safe spot. We have already established a shelter location and a location where a lot of people evacuate with personal property, a place that you can put that personal property. That's already in place.
Somebody have a water display right here?
So those are basically the things. If you want more detail about the actual preparedness, please see the staff after the discussion. With regard to public information, we would really like to, and both public information and alert and warning, we've activated an opt-in feature for wireless phones. We're going to use that platform for both providing you with just kind of routine information through SMS messaging or through email, or if we get to an evacuation stage, it's possible to launch a voice activation. That information on how to opt in is on this paper that I've got. We have over 800 people that have opted in already, so that's great for you guys. Thank you so much for doing that. It makes our job a lot easier. As you know, we have some communication challenges, particularly in the area that's affected by this fire. If we do need to launch an alert to you, an actual alert, we'll be using this platform for wireless phones. And also, we have another system, what we call a reverse 911 system, to do the alerts via wireline phones. With that, I think much more personalized information we could get with staff. And again, I have three. Kate and Baird, the emergency manager for the borough, is in the background. We'll be available for questions afterward. And I finally want to thank you guys. It's been really helpful. We took a little while to get kind of spooled up, but we're trying to produce quality information products for you. And if there's anything we can do to make it better or anything that you need to know from us, please feel free to contact us. The contact information is on the sheet. So with that, thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Okay, so I just want to go over a little bit of the handout that we passed out. So there was the agenda on one side, and then on the other side was the update. And so this is done daily, and so this has fire information for both fires, and then it also has links if you want to go online and get more and be able to have a better map in front of you that you can zoom in on your home computer or on your phone. Our phone number is on there as well. It says fire information 907-347-6801. And I understand that, doing text or getting online sometimes is not in everyone's wheelhouse, right? So that's why we're providing a good old telephone number. It's either myself or my staff answering that phone. And then what David was speaking of, if we go from right now we do have some subdivisions that are in level 1 or ready, right? And honestly, in the state of Alaska during the summertime, especially in the interior, I believe Norm mentioned this, we are all in a ready. If that excels and goes to a 2, the people that have opted in will get a text that says your area is moving to a level 2, a set, and a link for more information. Another thing that's going to happen, so that's more the high-tech end of things. Low-tech is the borough is going to stand up a call center that will be a published phone number that then people can call and get more of that one-on-one conversation going. Another low-tech way of getting the information out is, I think some of you have seen, we've put out some signboards that have, actually they look a lot like this, and they got maps on them with an update. And there's also some small ones around the neighborhoods that are in level 1 that are little pop-up signboards that have our updates in them. Those will be able to have the current information as well. So you don't need to have a computer or a fancy smartphone to be able to get the information. And it's one of the strategies that I've been able to use, and actually because of doing fires in Alaska, that's where that came from. Like, we don't want everything on high tech. We got to make sure to have a low tech way of being able to get the information out. So that's how to get information. So I just wanted to let folks know that. And So let's go into, like, remember what I said in the beginning. We're going to go into some question and answers. And when we do that, let's think about questions that will be good for the group and good for your neighbors, and then also for the folks online. So with that, who has some questions? Okay, we got one over here.
Can folks repeat what was said in the first 5 minutes, since there were a lot of people that came here late because they were trying to figure out how to park?
Okay, well, so the first 5 minutes, it was me. So the question was if I could repeat what was said in the first 5 minutes, just because of kind of the logistics of parking and everything. A lot of it was just the logistics of how the meeting was going to go on. I spoke about the agenda, I spoke about our speakers, and if there's any more gaps, I'll be hanging out here, and me and you can have a one-on-one. I got one in the back, and let's do it nice and loud.
Going on currently along that fire break, including the fire break, dozer line, or anything happening there?
So the question is there any improvement that's happening on the fuel break, like dozers? And our operations chief will answer that.
As far as dozers along the fuel break on the ridge, yes. Today they started running some dozers from west to east along the fuel break in the vicinity of Martin subdivision. The dozer line is on the downhill side of all the power poles up there. And then behind the dozers, they're laying out hose that's going to be supported by pumps and then engines. And they're going to continue to progress eastward as we evaluate things.
Okay, ma'am in the middle.
Is there any of our volunteer from fire departments that are assisting in this effort?
So the question is, I'm just going to repeat the question so to make sure everyone hears. The question was, is there any of the local volunteer fire departments part of the organization helping with this fire? Am I correct?
Right now we're being supported by the Chena Goldstream. They have a water tender that we're utilizing. We're also filling our water tenders from the fill site at the station just up Murphy Dome Road on the right. And we've also been talking with the borough and forestry about designating some groups of engines from other local fire departments if we need them to respond up there.
And just as we started the meeting, I talked to the Gordon, he's the FMO. He was working with the borough and the cooperators. So as of tomorrow, it's how many? 4 to 6 engines available, and there'll be a combination of forestry and the cooperator, the fire departments, so they'll be assisting as well. We'll put them in around the subdivisions where they're needed for protection and notification.
And I'm just going to give a quick plug to the community emergency response team that provided this awesome speaker and sound machine over here, and the water in the back, and they stepped up and helped us out with getting the information out into the communities, and will be part of the process. If you want to be part of that volunteer group, Teresa is going to be in the back, and she's got some flyers, so that's definitely something to look into if you want to help do your part.
What can we do to help? What can we do to prepare for firefighters coming to our area, or get in the way or get out of the way? How can we as a community help you guys do your job better? What sort of things can we do?
So the question was, what can we do to help? And that's a great question, because we do have a lot of fire trucks up and down some of these small roads. So that's a really good question, and I'm going to have Norm McDonald answer that.
Well, I think for the right now, for what the ready, set, go is just to pay attention to that. When we go to a set or a go, it's for a reason. So one of the things that we do with the community is keep that trust. We're not going to go to that next level unless there's a need. So we do ask, if you live in those subdivisions, and we ask you to be set or to go, that you do that. I mean, it's a volunteer evacuation, but it's for a reason, and that's public safety and also the safety of our firefighters, so we can operate around those subdivisions without other vehicles, without the threat of somebody maybe being in their home and a firefighter wanting to go someplace where they maybe shouldn't. So that's the one thing we can do for now. We are aware that a lot of people live on the Murphy Road, and so we're checking our speeds, working on dust abatement. We just ask you to do the same. I think that's probably our biggest risk right now, is that traffic up and down. And then the other part is something that you can do starting now, is there's that Firewise program, and you probably hear it every summer and anytime you have a public meeting. But if you can take care of the stuff around your home, thin the trees, limb them, move the burnable materials away from the house, if you can do that over the course of a year, that's something we can't do in 20 minutes when a fire's coming. So we ask everybody every time I get a chance to mention that. I've been on a lot of fires and a lot of interface fires. The houses that make it are the ones that have done that work. The ones that we can't protect sometimes are the ones that haven't. So that's something you can do for us and also for yourselves.
And that's a good lead-in. We have some material, the Firewise booklet. We've got some here, and we can, if we run out, we'll be able to provide a place where you could get more. Sir, in the back?
Talk about the people that live in like the Chattanooga River corridor and the people that have structures down there. We talk about resources and stuff. Does that mean, or is the people who have those structures, is it their responsibility to have like pumps and hose and all this stuff? But when you talk about resources, is there enough resources to cover all of the people that are residents in the Chattanooga corridor and all the recreational cabins that are in there? Because there's a lot of them.
There is a lot. So
if you have a structure, is it your responsibility to have those resources? Because half the people are saying that you should have the pump, you should have the hose, all this other stuff. And so is that something that they bring in from lower 48, or is that something? I mean, how many pumps do we have? How much hose do we have? All that sort of thing.
Okay.
And if a fire blows up somewhere else and they pull all this shit out somewhere else, are they going to leave it here?
Okay, that's a great question. I'm going to try to paraphrase it real quick, just so everyone can hear, and then our folks online. The question was, is there enough resources to be able to protect the cabins in that Chattanooga River corridor and the residents and the folks that live there? And then do they have to provide that equipment? And if there was something else happening someplace, would those pumps get pulled? Did I do an okay job with that? Okay. Yep. Copy that. Yep.
So Jake's responsible for, getting the houses down there plumbed and prepped. But I guess to answer your question, as somebody who lives in Alaska, if you have a recreational cabin and you are out there, I would recommend you have that type of equipment anyways. I mean, you can...
Now they're only putting the pumps on one side of the river, and like the last fire was down below there, it jumped the river.
Yeah, and that's a true possibility. So you're right. No, we don't have enough pumps for every house on the river, every house in the subdivision. That goes back to one, personal responsibility of the homeowners. The houses that have that defensible space, there's times where you don't even need to put pumps out there, and so they'll look at, they're prioritizing the structures that are the closest to the risk right now, and no, there's not enough pumps for every house. I don't think there's enough pumps in the country to plumb every house there. So we will prioritize the ones that are an immediate threat and be ready to move. So as that fire progresses, you can move equipment downriver. But to go back to your first question, the more you can do to be prepared as a cabin owner, the better off you are. And if that includes a pump, so you can take care of a small fire in your front yard, or put a sprinkler up and get in your boat and leave, that's a good thing to do.
Okay. How about one more question? At the table?
I'm just curious if you guys could define containment a bit more. When you read that the fire is 0% contained, that obviously doesn't make any of us feel good. So, what does that look like? Just tell me more about the jargon of containment.
Yeah, and my apologies about that. That's part of my job, is being the translator of all the jargon and kind of the technical mumbo jumbo that comes out of operations, and they do a great job. But that is part of my job, is being that bridge. And the word containment is it's one of those things that you do want to focus on a full suppression fire, like this fire. And right now, we're on the handouts that you're seeing, it does say 0% containment, but that doesn't mean that the work isn't being done. And sometimes it takes a little bit for the mapping and the math that goes into getting a containment percentage out to the public. So to speak just a little bit more on that, on where we're starting to see possible containment that then will translate into the maps and the updates, I'm going to ask Jake just to speak about the area on the fire where you feel like in the next shift or two that we'll start seeing some possible containment.
And define containment.
Okay, containment. So as we work around the perimeter of the fire, we gain containment, but it's not just cutting out the edge. Interior of the fire edge, you still have pockets of spruce, you have smoldering tundra mat, stuff that can throw embers over the line. So it's not just going along the edge. You have to work in, say 100 feet to 300 feet, depending on the vegetation types. As far as the area that we're expecting containment first would be on this southern portion from the ridge line down to Shovel Creek. They've got saw line from the ridge down to Shovel Creek with hose support. And then the next area of containment would be from south heading north along the ridge, along this eastern flank. They've cut that out with saw line. There's a trail in there that they're using for part of their control line. So they've got saw line and hose all the way down to this portion here. And that's just completed today. So it's freshly completed. So they'll be patrolling that area, working in deeper with the hoses, cutting limbs off of the trees to prevent torching. They're going to be lining out in a grid formation out in the green, probably up to 300 feet at least, and gridding this area for spot fires that might have occurred out there.
So containment means that there's a break large enough that it would not jump?
Yeah,
Is
and that we feel comfortable that it's not going to move out of that area. Currently,
can you repeat what you just said? Sorry.
The question was, which direction is it currently moving, because it's grown in the last couple days. Right now, it's moving to the north, but mostly to the west, west of Shovel Creek, moving toward the old burn. Several hours ago, there was a spot fire west of Shovel Creek, 80 acres, burning actively, moving uphill toward the old burn. So it's fortunate that the burn is there. They're running aircraft on it, and they got people down there scouting it out. But right now, it's primarily with water scooping aircraft and air tankers and several helicopters working it.
So part of when you're looking at these maps, when they're posted around your neighborhood or when you're looking at them online, you see how this perimeter is all red? When that containment starts going up, you'll start seeing the black line go in on the perimeter. And on this fire, we want to see black line all the way around it, because, like very well explained, that will keep the fire from moving out. That doesn't mean that all the smoke's going to go away when it's contained, because this inside of the fire will still have interior pockets that could smolder and then put up some smoke. Okay, hope we're getting some feedback. So with that, I just want to say thanks so much for coming to our meeting. We're going to be here. Please meet us. We would love to get some FaceTime with you. And just have patience with us this summer, and let's all think we need some rain this weekend. So thanks for joining us. Thanks.